In this day and age, some people are willing to go to the absolute extremes when it comes to weight loss. There have been plenty of herbal teas, questionable diet pills, and even certain medical creams that are designed to help you burn fat quickly and easily. But one of the most dangerous ways to slim down is fasting for long periods of time. However, not everyone is willing to listen to the experts when it comes to this sort of thing. This is the case for one man who took it to the absolute extreme by not eating at all for over a year. Now, this is a terrible idea for anyone to even consider, and it goes without saying that the following case should definitely not be attempted as a way of weight loss. The case of this brave man is quite interesting nonetheless, so let's get right into this man's fantastic journey of extreme weight loss. In 1965, 27-year-old Angus Barbieri checked himself into Mayfield Hospital in Dundee, Scotland. He was just a normal guy who happened to work with his dad at a fish and chip joint. It's no big surprise that working in a fish and chip shop played a major part to the cause of this man's obesity. At the beginning of the story, his weight was a whopping 456 pounds. He told doctors that he was ready to refuse food to lose weight, and he hesitantly agreed to monitor his progress. He told them that he was going to take part on this journey with or without their help, so keep in mind that this transformation was all very carefully medically supervised. At first, Barberie wasn't planning on fasting for too long, and even to this day, most doctors agree that short fasts are more effective than long ones. So the physicians at Mayfield recommended that he didn't go for more than 40 days without eating food, but days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months. Barberie kept refusing food past the 40-day limit because he said that he felt okay. He had his goal weight in mind and a will of iron to back it up, but that wasn't the only thing that kept him going. Again, that's where the doctors came in. For the entire duration of the unconventional weight loss journey, Barberie took tons of vitamins and supplements to make up for the nutrients he was lacking. These included pills for potassium and sodium and vitamin supplements since he wasn't getting any nutrients from the food. And he didn't refrain from drinks either. He played it smart with the drinks, however, by only drinking things that were low in calories. This included mineral water, black coffee, and tea. It was only towards the end of his journey that he started adding some milk and sugar for more flavor. The vitamin diet seemed to be working just fine since Barberie didn't experience any problems that would require him to be in the hospital. He stayed there in the beginning so the doctors could keep a close eye on his health and physical well-being, but he was given a green light to go home since his body was adapting to the hunger much better than the doctors had predicted. One of the physicians said that the patient typically had to stay in the hospital to resist the temptation to eat, but Barberie was showing amazing willpower and spent almost all the time at home. This part completely shocked the doctors, who thought he would be desperate to eat something solid after so much time. He only had to go to the hospital regularly to get tests done to check on his health. The doctors at all the hospitals actually started to notice very low levels of glucose in his blood. For anyone who doesn't know, glucose is basically your body's energy source that it gets from food. The low levels confirmed that his body really was in starvation mode, but surprisingly running on an empty tank didn't interfere with his daily routine. The only thing that Angus had to do was leave his job at his dad's fish and chip shop, and it was probably a good call not to work at a delicious restaurant while trying to fast for over a year. On July 11, 1966, Angus Barberie's headline-making fast finally ended. After 382 days, the now unrecognizable man had lost a whopping 276 pounds. He reached his goal weight of 180 pounds, and he ended up in the Guinness World Record book for the longest fast known in history, 1 year and 17 days. What would you do in his position? Would you immediately try and eat as much as you possibly could? Well, that's not what he did at all, and it definitely was for the better. That likely would have overloaded his system, so chances are that a heavy meal would have simply just come right back up. Barberie just had one boiled egg and a piece of bread with butter, along with his morning cup of coffee for breakfast. In his words, he really enjoyed the small simple meal, and it filled his tummy right up. He also said that apart from feeling a bit weak, he didn't have any major side effects. At the end of his fast, Barberie was looking forward to a vacation to Spain and a gradual return to eating with a careful eye on keeping his weight stable. He slowly worked himself back into normal life with ordinary food and proportions. The doctors were shocked not only by his unbeatable willpower, but also the unusual ease he lived with while not eating food for so long. But what really had everyone stunned was that he was able to keep the weight off. From the very beginning, the doctors were very skeptical about whether or not he would blimp back up after the transformation. It's actually the case for most people who try extreme diets. They usually just end up going right back where they started. The body combined with their eating habits just can't keep off all the weight. But once Barberie went back to eating normal, he only gained 15 pounds. Angus Barbary eventually moved to England, where he settled down and started a family. Although he holds a pretty incredible world records, it's worth noting that Guinness has since stopped recognizing such extreme fasts, so people don't try these sort of dangerous stunts themselves. They are just trying to look out for the well-being and health of the people trying to get into their book. From a medical perspective of the situation, the case was very outstanding to say the least. How on earth was this man's body able to go so long without food? Well, in 2012, Australian author and scientist Dr. Carl Karuzalnicki gave a lecture on the radio where he explained the chemical process that allowed Barberie to survive without food for over a year. According to the doctor, after 2 to 3 days of starvation, energy starts coming from the body's fat stores, which Barberie had plenty of. Some fat molecules can be transformed into glucose, which, like I said earlier, is the body's fuel source. In theory, the human body can live on these fats stored until they run out, but after that you can get into really dangerous territory because it starts feeding off muscle. And although these fat stores can keep the body going, that doesn't mean that the person will be in good health. That's why Barberie was given supplements and monitored very carefully. The combination of his high levels of fat stores with nutrients provided by the doctors put him in a surprisingly healthy state of being. Still, scientists believe that this starvation mechanism has deep biological and evolutionary roots. You see, our ancestors did not always have the luxury of a fridge stocked to the brim with food, or a grocery store right around the corner. They had to go days without eating when they were hunting and looking for edible plants. These fasts could come in even longer during winter and sometimes even last for weeks on end. The human body was able to adapt to these conditions, and it was necessary for our survival at the time. During long periods of time without food, all the internal processes like breathing and heart rate become slower so that the body doesn't use up and require as much energy. But winter, no matter how long it was, wouldn't last for years. Once early humans would start eating regularly again, after the rough periods of little to no food, then all those processes would speed right back up again. People who start fasting often notice at the initial stages that they have an unusual clarity of thought, almost as if their brain is working more efficiently. This is actually very true. Scientists have an evolutionary explanation for these reasons why this happens at the beginning of a fast. It was during hunger periods that the malnourished brain had to think of a way to get something to eat. If the brain shuts down when the body stopped getting food, humanity would never have survived. Still, it's hardly possible that our ancestors could survive without any food for any longer than a few months. This is why the case of Angus Barbieri is such a medical anomaly and astounds scientists and scholars to this day. There is no scientific proof that fasting for longer than 40 days can do any good. In fact, there's more proof that it's extremely harmful to human beings. Although those doctors back in the 60s were willing to help this guy on his dangerous path to his weight goal, it's highly unlikely that any such thing would happen today. And that's because there are so many safer options when it comes to healthy weight loss. Doctors nowadays can set up patients with nutritionists that will draw up a diet and exercise plans for safe gradual weight loss over time thanks to long-term lifestyle changes. That being said, starving oneself is certainly not the way to do it. But we can see the case of Angus Barberie's record-breaking fast as proof that the human body is a fascinating mechanism to say the least. However, it's notable to point out that, like I said before, Angus was going to take part in this fast with or without the doctor's permission. This definitely influenced them to take part into this wild journey. Do you think that you would have the willpower that Angus had to not eat for an entire year? Let us know down in the comments. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Top 10 Owl for more amazing content like this every day.